Hello, I'm Joe, and here we go for another Joe Go review. The bow tie today is my second giraffe bow tie, Giraffe 2.0, because I went to Toys R Us 2.0, or really Toys R Us 3.0 at this point, but I went to the first standalone Toys R Us since they closed all Toys R Us's back in 2018. Now, since then, in the year 2022, Toys R Us came back as stores within Macy's stores, which is pretty sad. I'm not a big fan of the Toys R Us stores within Macy's stores, so I was so excited to hear that Toys R Us had finally broke free of Macy's and opened up their first standalone store in a suburb outside of Chicago. I traveled all the way there to check it out, and let me tell you, the term standalone is used pretty loosely. While it is standalone, being that it's not inside a Macy's, it is still inside a mall. So it's just really the size of a typical mall store. And so it really is very similar to the Macy's Toys R Us's more than the true Toys R Us's that we know and love. I was expecting, like a whole big store, like a big brick and mortar standalone store, a big box store, just like Toys R Us's used to be. But really, this is just like the Macy's Toys R Us's, but with walls. What made Toys R Us the biggest toy store there is that it was the biggest toy store. So for it to come back as a store within a store or a small mall store, it's just never going to capture the magic of Toys R Us in its prime. Because when Toys R Us was really cooking, it had the best assortment of any toy store. No matter what you were looking for, if you couldn't find it at Walmart or Kmart, you could find it at Toys R Us. Sure, you would have to pay a little bit more, but at least it was all in one store. For every big toy brand, Toys R Us would have the biggest selection. Now, this Toys R Us had a lot of brands, but not nearly enough selection in those brands. Some brands had an amazing presence, like Schleich and Brio. Schleich had an animatronic dinosaur. I didn't mind that the Schleich shelves were half empty, because I was being entertained by the robot dinosaur. How cool is that? And Brio had a whole train there, a whole train that I could play with. That was fantastic. Brio had a decent selection, but what made it so much fun was that I could play with the trains. I'm realizing that Toys R Us was really the children's museum of my generation. I didn't grow up with children's museums, but I grew up with Toys R Us's that I could play in all day. So if you can't have all the merchandise, make the shelf space fun. Their Lego selection was so limited. And if you're going to have a limited Lego selection, just make it fun to get your Lego set. Put a Lego vending machine in there. They make them. There's real Lego vending machines. Put a Lego vending machine in that Toys R Us, because if you're not going to get the set you want, make it fun to get the set you get. Now, to test this new Toys R Us's assortment, I went in there with a bit of a turtles test. Because as I said, what Toys R Us really was the place to find the toy you're looking for. If there was a Ninja Turtle on your wish list, you couldn't find it at Walmart or Kmart, you could surely find it at Toys R Us. Just look at the YouTube videos of Toys R Us from back in the 90s. Talk about immersive merchandising. We're talking floor-to-ceiling toys, T to B, top to bottom toys, toys everywhere, stacks and stacks of toys. So you could always find the toy you're looking for at Toys R Us. And right now, I'm looking for the new Ninja Turtles from the Mutant Mayhem collection. And it's been really hard to find the bad guys from that line. I haven't seen Bebop or Leatherhead by themselves. So I was really hoping that the first standalone Toys R Us would have an amazing turtle assortment. Well, it was a real anchovy on my pizza to see just how small their turtle assortment was. There was a better Turtles assortment at the Macy's Toys R Us, which was really, really sad. Just looking at their assortment at this standalone Toys R Us, it was really bogus, dude. I could find more turtles at my local Walmart. Now, later in the day, I went to a small specialized toy store specializing in vintage toys and new collectibles. It's called Quake, and I highly recommend it if you're in the Chicago area. I love being surrounded by all these toys. Talk about floor-to-ceiling toys. This was amazing. Now, Toys R Us, I'm not telling you that you need to look like this, but just look back to your own archives of what a true Toys R Us toy aisle used to look like. It was pegs overstuffed with toys. Toys as far as the eye could see. And this little shop kind of had more magic in their merchandising than this new Toys R Us. And I did find the Ninja Turtle bad guy that I was looking for. I found Leatherhead in this small specialty store. And while this was a vintage toy store, many of the toys they had were just new versions of old toys. And with toy aisles of Walmart and Target looking a lot like the toy aisles of my childhood, with all these toy companies re-releasing toys from 30 years ago, I should be able to walk into a brand new Toys R Us and it look almost exactly like the Toys R Us's of the 80s and 90s, stocked with all these new versions of old toys. How cool would that be? But limited assortments aside, I feel the look of these new Toys R Us's are all wrong. I really don't like these half shelves, all these shelves that you can see over. I mean, the awesomeness of Toys R Us was being able to walk in there as a kid and look at the shelf and look up and up and up and still see nothing but toys. With these half shelves that you can plainly see over, I don't know, I just don't like it. I want floor-to-ceiling merchandising. I feel if my 9-year-old walked in there, he could see over all those shelves. He'd think it was a toy store made for ants. Another thing a true Toys R Us needs are toys that I can play with. Okay, so you can't do the big assortment and you can't do the epic product merchandising. So what can you do? You can make the visit fun. Have a lot of toys out that I can play with. And they had a decent amount of toys out there that everyone could play with. That's good. But you just gotta make the visit fun and memorable. Have a lot of fun photo ops. They did have an oversized Funko Pop box that you can take a picture in. Yes, more things like this. Okay, so you don't have the biggest Ninja Turtle variety, but why not have like a Ninja Turtle diorama out there? Something I can take a picture of that makes the trip memorable so that I want to buy a Jeffrey plush or pen afterwards. You know, later in my trip, I went to a Ninja Turtle pop-up at a pizza parlor there in Chicago, and I tell you, that temporary event had better theming and hits of nostalgia than this Toys R Us. Okay, we're at the end of the video, so here's a quick lightning round of things that I really liked. I really liked the staff. The staff was amazing. They had a greeter there. A greeter's essential. Everyone was excited to be there. The right staff can make any space magical. I really loved how the whole store was broken up into specific categories, sometimes a little too specific. Like, I know what it means when it says licensed girls, but does the average mall shopper know? I don't think so. I also loved how many collectibles they had. They had shelves and shelves of collectibles. I also loved how much Toys R Us nostalgia they had at this Toys R Us. You could see the lyrics of the Toys R Us theme song. You could see the whole evolution of Jeffrey. They had an entire window display that was the whole timeline of Toys R Us. So you too could track how it only took them 60 years to go bankrupt. That's fun. I did make a purchase there. I got a Jeffrey pin there, and with my purchase, I got a free bag. You're actually supposed to pay for the bag, so here's a quick travel hack. If you show up wearing a Lego giraffe bow tie, they give you the bag for free. Pretty cool. I did learn that on their grand opening, the biggest seller was the Jeffrey plush. There's a lot of love and loyalty for Toys R Us, and I feel we're all settling for this reimagined, half-baked Toys R Us when really what we want is the identical experience that we had 35 years ago. So, is this a Joe-go or a no-go? It's a no-go! I'm gonna have to wait until Toys R Us has enough space so they can properly recapture that feeling of wonder that old Toys R Us's could hold over a kid. Because right now, the only wonder I have is wondering where all the toys are. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you to those that have already subscribed. And please leave me a comment. Let me know your biggest Toys R Us memories, what you thought of this new Toys R Us, and what you want to see from Toys R Us's in the future. I would love to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.